So, a long time no see. I'm still collecting, but I was kind of getting bored with my own content, and I just kind of stopped for a while and then just never came back. But I've been still collecting especially collecting the 1955 tops, also 1981 tops. So I'm getting a lot closer to finishing the 55 tops. I'm up in over 75% finished in PSA, thanks to finally getting back this PSA order that was submitted February 2021, and I just got this cards back today. So that's 16 months, which, you know, they're getting the backlog cleared, but of course everybody's had to wait a very long time. And so I thought I would go ahead, since I showed these cards before I sent them in a previous video, which I'll link, I thought I might as well post this video here showing the cards now that I got them back. So it's mostly 55 tops with some other 63 Fleer and some other odds and ends. And so we'll look through them, and I also want to I'm going to give my predictions. Now, the bad news is that there were quite a number of these 55s that the rating, or the grade, was way lower than I thought it were going to be. The good news is that there were a lot of 1955 tops that came in better than I thought, and in some cases 2 grades better. So before I even go on, let me just say, clearly I don't know how to judge 1955 tops. The other cards, the other years, I did a lot better job. The 80s stuff that I sent in before, I did a lot, was a lot more accurate. So, but overall, the news on this is very good, and the cards that I really needed to grade well did grade well. I didn't have any. I had, again, some very poor grades, but they weren't on anything that was particularly valuable, so that's the good thing. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, and let's take a look. So on the channel, I opened up one of these 1951 Topps doubles pack. These were originally, you can maybe see at the bottom here, there's a little, they were 2 cards that were, it's probably hard to see, there are 2 cards that were attached together, and you see the little tabs there. But then at the end of 51 or early 52, or maybe both, they repackaged separated cards into these packs, and those are fairly easily available, and you can still find those, although like just about every unopened, stuff, they're more expensive now than they were when I did this. But I got 2 Hall of Famers in this. So the first one, Warren Spahn, I was really hoping for an 8, but I was concerned. I was apparently a little overly concerned about the centering. You can see the top to bottom centering isn't great, and even left and right is a little off. But I still got an 8 on it. So I predicted a 7 and got an 8. So that's really nice. There's the back of these cards. So that worked out well. Now the Duke Snider, I predicted a 5. That was probably an optimistic prediction. Probably should have predicted about a 4. The problem with this card, and I honestly don't know whether you'll be able to see it. I'm going to bend this or move this in different ways, in different light. But there's kind of creasing on the surface. And looking at it again up close, it seems like it got worse in between sending it in and getting it back. Now, I'm not sure about that. Looking at it now, yeah, I can kind of see why they downgraded it a lot, although I think because everything else looks really good, it should probably maybe be a 3, or even a 2.5. So I wasn't expecting to get a great grade on this, so that's okay. This was at $10 a card. It's not that big a deal, even though this is not really. It's hard to know what this is worth because their twos don't come up for sale of a card like that. It's not that high value to where it would. Now for the 1955 tops. So that's kind of the main event here. And I took a quick look through these, and I think it seemed like from what I've seen, when I was off on my guesses, I was putting too much stock in centering and not enough maybe on the corners, I think is what was going on. Jake Theus, I was predicting a 7. I got a 6. I can see that there's a corner there that's definitely a little off. Now I can't be 100% certain the corner was exactly like that when I sent it in, but from the ones I saw, I certainly didn't see any evidence of that the cards were been damaged or anything. So, but that's not a big deal. Some of these cards in the interim, in the 16 months since I sent these off, I've actually bought PSA graded versions of some of these cards. So not all of these will go into my collection. Here's the first, and actually this is the best hit of the whole submission. Roy Sievers. I was predicting a 6 and got an 8. And I was predicting a 6 because the centering, as you can see, the top to bottom centering is pretty far off. That seems to be pretty marginal for an 8. And I'm going to look at it real closely here again so I can see it. The corners aren't exactly perfect here either. And there's a little bit of chipping there, and some of these corners aren't the greatest. So I to be honest, I don't understand why this got an 8. I need to take a more careful look at some of the other 8s that I have in this set. I mean, it's a good, I have to say, it's a good looking card. It's got good bold color. And there doesn't seem to be any surface issues. The back is really good. The back looks ever slightly top to bottom, but otherwise looks pretty perfect. But this one, there's only one 8.5 in the population report, and only 3 9s without qualifiers. And there are a couple of 9s with qualifiers, but those are considered, worse than 8s. I assume they're off-center qualifiers probably. So there are only 4 cards better than this. And I got this card in an eBay auction for a total of $8 shipped, including shipping and tax. And because there's very few cards above an 8, this is actually an over $300 card, which is just kind of amazing. But this one definitely goes in my collection. This will be a nice one for my set. Muscauron. Now this one I broke out of a SGC 7.5 slab, and in my guess I put 7.5 in for my guess, which was my way of saying I don't know whether it's going to be a 7 or 8, but I thought maybe it had a chance at an 8, and I did get the 8. The centering is really good on this one. Looking at it closely, there's a little scuff on the slab, and looking at it closely, the corners do look pretty good, but I mean, this top left corner, is a little touched. But, again, I think one of the things here, and I've seen people have gotten, in recent months, have gotten back vintage cards that have graded way lower than they thought they would. And there's some thought that maybe because they've allegedly hired tons of new graders to work through this backlog, that they have people working on vintage who maybe aren't used to seeing vintage, and they're grading them too harshly based on modern standards. So I would guess this is somebody who knows vintage. And the back here is pretty good. So that's very nice. Now Vic Power, this is another one I thought was going to be a 6. And a lot of that was the centering. It's obviously, it's really a fair bit off left to right on the centering. I mean, quite a bit off. I'm not, I mean, that's, is that even 65-35? And one corner here is a little bit dinged there. The color is really vivid on a lot of these, so maybe that's a factor. And then on the back, the centering on the back is really poor, although it can still be an 8 and be pretty far off center on the back. The front is obviously much more important. But with all those, you know, with the centering, especially with the centering issues in the one corner, I really thought that was going to be a 6, and it's an 8. So there you go. And that's another one that's actually pretty valuable. This is this one is over $200. So this is like the second or third most valuable card in the submission. Now Harvey Haddix, this is the first of many that graded very poorly, a 4.5. Now, the centering is a little off, but there is a corner here that's pretty dinged. I don't know whether it was like that when I sent it in. I was predicting a 6, so I imagine the corner probably was a little iffy when I sent it in. And maybe there's a surface issue somewhere here. I don't know. Actually, you can see here this corner is that corner is a little rough there too. Even though it doesn't look so bad on the, you can kind of see on the front, I guess. If you look real closely, you can see that the crease does go all the way through. So I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, you know, although they talk about, you know, being a overall eye appeal, when a card gets a grade like this, it's usually some technical issue, like a bad corner or something like that. And I could maybe convince myself that the coloring here isn't as vivid, and maybe there's some surface scuffing on that as well too. So again, I can live with that, considering some of the other grades. Corky Valentine. This is another one of the ones that I thought was going to get a 6, and it got an 8. Again, the bottom right corner is definitely chipped. And the centering, you know, left to right centering could be a little better. I mean, it's still well within 8, but... And the back looks pretty good. So, you know, again, I don't know. I'm happy to get it. It's good for the collection. Again, I've got to look at, you know, I've got to take a closer look at all the ones I've got since and compare those. I mean, I may just need to be recalibrated a little bit. Maybe I was just being too harsh on these old cards after spending so much time looking at 80s cards. Rip Rapolsky. This one I was predicting like 6.5, so I wasn't sure whether it would be a 6 or a 7. It got a 7. I was obviously concerned about the centering. The corners look quite good on this one. And I think that's what saved the 7. It's quite a bit off center on the back, but this is certainly within PSA 7 standards on the back. Ray Jablonski. This is the last one that I got 2 grades better than I was expecting. Again, I was expecting a 6 on this, and I got an 8. And I'm not sure what I was. Let me look closely here. I don't know. I think it was just a little bit of corner wear. But, you know, looking at this again, I mean, right now, yeah, I would definitely say this. You know, I should have guessed a 7 on this anyway. So I think, you know, part of this is just I hadn't seen nearly as many of these 55 tops as I have now. But getting an 8 in that is very nice. All of these 8s are, well, just about all of these 8s are going to go into my collection, and a lot of the 7s as well. I think there's one case where I had bought an 8 for one of the less expensive commons. Ed Bailey. I was expecting a 7 on this one, and got a 6. And I don't see anything on the corners at all, or the centering, that would drop it down to a 6. The back is fine, so maybe there was a surface issue, or maybe not. Now, two Bob Borkowskis, and they both got 4s. That one, yeah, I can see that the corner here has been bent. Now, again, I don't know whether that's the whether that was like that when I sent it in. Obviously, it's off center. Yeah, there's some damage at the top of the card too. I mean, I was expecting one of these to be a 7 and one of them to be a 6. Yeah, so this is the one I expected to be a 6, and this is the one I expected to be a 7, because there didn't seem to be any corner damage. There still doesn't seem to be much corner damage. So again, they must have seen. Geez, they must have seen something there. It's harder to see surface defects in the slab, but I certainly, just on first look here, even getting it in the light up close, I certainly don't see any real defects there. But I should say that except for the ones that I mentioned, that there are a few of these from that I broke out of slabs. All the rest of these were bought raw in 2020, because these were sent in early 21. So most of these I'm not in very much money. So even if they didn't come through and I got a 4, I mean, I think Bob Borkowski, I mean, I spent looks like I spent about $10 a piece on these cards. So I mean, it's not. I mean, if they were 7s, they would still maybe only be worth, you know, maybe $30. But some of these, in addition to my fairly high grade PSA set, I'm also working on a raw set in just about what would be equivalent to about PSA 4. And probably what I'll do is I'll probably crack open one of these, the one that I think looks worse, probably, well, I don't know, maybe the one that looks better. I don't know. I'll probably crack open one of these and put it in with my raw set. The problem with the raw set is going to be it's hard to get inexpensive superstar cards, just like it is with the graded set. So again, the ones that missed were generally some of the lower value cards anyway. Sandy Amorous, this is another one that was a little bit of a disappointment. There again, there's this upper right hand corner that I can see, and there's also, I don't remember whether that was there before. I predicted a 6 for this. I don't know whether I saw this little yeah, you can see it right there. There's a little indent there. And that, combined with the corner and being off center, and maybe there's a little bit of a ding there, I can see this. You know, I can see why this might have got a 5. If I were to, you know, grade this myself or predict myself now, looking at the card as it is in here, yeah, I would say a 5. Howie Paulette. This one I was expecting a 7, got a 6. That top right corner, you know, it's hard to believe it's a coincidence that there's so many of these. The top right corner seems to be dinged. Of course, the bottom right's a little bent there too. So again, I may not have looked quite carefully enough to see all that. When I look at it from the back, those two corners also look kind of rounded. So, I mean, based on the way the card looks in here, yeah, probably a 6 is appropriate. Bob Grimm, this was a win. I was thinking a 6, and this came out of a GAI 7.5 slab. Now, GAI, it's not unusual for their cards to be graded relative to, say, SGC and PSA. And so, you know, I was looking at the centering, a lot of the centering, and also there's those little kind of dark ink sparkles or splatters that you see very often with these 1955 tops. And so I thought all of that might, that might prevent it from getting a 7. I mean, I've seen 7s with a little bit of that, other 7s with that a little bit of that as well. So, but that's a good one. Bob Grimm is a kind of a higher price common. Frank House. I was expecting a 6 here, and this one I got right. Bob Skinner. I was expecting a 7. I got this one right, and did get the 7. There's both top to bottom and left to right centering is off. The corners are pretty good. Steve Bilko. Got this one right as well. I was predicting a 7. Top to bottom centering is a little off. There's a few of those little ink splatters or sparkles, but otherwise a pretty nice card. This one here, I thought I might only get a 6 on this, and that was my prediction, was a 6. And Monty Irvin, Hall of Famer, and I got the 7 on this, and that makes that's a little over $200 card. Of course, I think I paid almost $40 for this raw, and again that was in 2020, and so, and the corners aren't too bad on this. I see a little bit of. See maybe a little bit more chipping than I would like on that left-hand corner, but yeah, I can see a 7 on that. Wally Westlake, I was expecting a 7 on this, and I got an 8. The color is quite vivid on that, and I think that might be what saved a lot of these too, is that it can be hard to tell from pictures on eBay, but I did make an effort to try to pick ones that I thought had, when I was buying a raw, to get ones that had good color, and that may have helped as well, because sometimes these do get faded from the old printing techniques of what almost 70 years ago. So a little off center. That seems kind of marginally an 8, but I'll take it. Jack Harshman, I did get this one right. Said 7. I really like the red background color and the blue panel here. Al Kaline's card looks really nice because of that color scheme, and this is another one with that color scheme. I mean, this one looks pretty good. I mean, to be honest, I don't see anything obvious on this one that makes it worse than some of the 8s I got in this one. Chuck Deering, I sent in 2 Chuck Deerings. This is this one I thought would get a 7, and it did. Again, I'm not sure I see anything that much worse than a couple of the 8s, although there is, I don't know, there's a little bit of blue ink sparkling there. Well, okay, and I can see here on the back there's something, I'm not sure what that red, I remember seeing this, I'm not sure whether that's like the card next to it or whether that's like a border of the whole sheet, something. Now the other Chuck Deering card I sent in came back N1, which is evidence for trimming. I looked at it, the only thing I could see is that it looked like there was some hint that maybe the one side of it had been kind of not cut straight up and down flush, but kind of mitered a little bit. Maybe that's what they were seeing. Not a really big deal. That's the only card that they didn't grade. Harry Brasheen. Again, I was concerned about the centering. This is kind of marginal centering for an 8. And there's a corner. Corners aren't, it could be a little better. I mean, I almost wonder. I mean, what I predict? I predicted a 7 for this. I mean, I almost feel like some of these 8s, they accidentally wrote 8 instead of 6. I don't know. Ellis Kinder. This was supposed to be a 7, and I got a 5. So I'm going to look at it closely here. I don't see anything. I don't see any obvious defects that would drop it down, below maybe a 6. I mean, it's off center on the back, but it's not that. I mean, it's not bad enough for a 5. So, not quite sure. Maybe a surface issue. Bill Renna. So this one, I put this as 7.5. I wasn't quite sure. I thought I might have a chance to get an 8, and it did get an 8. Centering's pretty good on this. Corners are actually really good on this one. Looking at it closely, though, it looks like there's a little indent. Don't know how well that'll show up. A hint of a little indent there. And I think that's on the card. That's on the card, not the slab. I don't know. Getting an 8, you wonder whether that happened while it was being slabbed after it was graded. Carl Sawatsky is predicting a 6. Got a 5. I mean, there's kind of a mark there. It's possible that's distinctive enough of a mark that maybe this should have been like a 6 MK. I've read, although this is, I don't know when they've been doing this, but they've said that they're getting a little more away from using modifiers, and instead they're just putting the card, just reducing the grade instead of adding modifiers to so many cards, unless there's like a stain or something, or miscut. Dick Hall is predicting a 7, so I got that one right. And the centering top to bottom that's too off center to be an 8, so that's good. Now Dale Long, this came out of an SGC 8 slab, but I wasn't sure that it was going to be an 8. I put it down as 7.5. I did get the 8 though. The centering top to bottom is a little marginal. I don't know, the corners look pretty good. That one's not perfect, but that's a pretty good card. Ted Lepsio. I was predicting a 7, even though it's off center left to right, and I did get the 7 on that one. Elvin Tapp. This was another 7 prediction, and I got an 8 on it. And I think I probably was concerned. You can see some of the ink splattering there, and for an 8, feels like there's too much of that for an 8. Otherwise the card looks really good. Otherwise, Grady Hatton. This one I was expecting an 8. There were only 2 cards, and we'll see one of them now and one of them in just a minute or two. There were only 2 cards that I was pretty sure should get an 8. This was one of them, and it did. This is a really nice looking card. Looking at the corners look really good on that one. Bunky Stewart, I was expecting a 7, got a 7. Centering is definitely a significant issue on that one. Ray Herbert, this one I was expecting a 6, and I got a 6. Yeah, there's a corner here that's got a little bit of bend to it, and that's probably what I saw. Joe Amalfitano, this one I was expecting a 7 and got an 8, so that actually puts this card over $100. A lot of these 8s are like the lower end commons 8s, PSA 8s in this set are typically right now going for about $60-ish. The commons have been going down slightly over the past year or so, while the stars have been kind of holding pretty steady, and in some cases going up. The exception being Hank Aaron, which he got a big bump when he passed away, and then his prices have settled down a little bit. But this one here, I see that corner there. Ray Crone. Okay, so this was the other one that I was expecting an 8 from. This came out of an SGC 8 case, and this one, both of these that came, both the Dale Long a little while ago and the Ray Crone, switching them from SGC to PSA, you know, I didn't. They basically broke even doing that when I throw in the $10 grading fee, but it just makes the set more consistent. So definitely happy there. Joe Coleman. So now we're getting into the high numbers, and Coleman, I had this as a 6. I think, looking at it now, the color. This is one that seems to have kind of faded color to me. You know, it looks okay otherwise. I still don't. I mean, I don't see it as a 7. It's also seems to be more toning than usual on the back, but it got a 7.5. Frank Baumholtz. This one I expected a 7. Got the 7. So another high number, and these high numbers generally are most of them, but not all of them, are more valuable than the low numbers. This is one that's not really much more valuable. Bob Klein, this is another one that I was expecting a 7. The top left corner there is a little bent. Again, that top left corner. Rudy Menarson, so this is another one of the ones that really crapped out. I was expecting a 6 on this. Got a 5. It's not obvious what is so bad about this, but Jim Robertson. I was expecting a 7 on this and did get that. Corners look pretty good. There's, you know, maybe a little print issue there, but a little off center on the back, but it's a pretty good card. Jim Bolger. Now this is interesting because this is the only 55 tops that I sent in that I thought was only going to get a 5. And a lot of that, well, first of all, it's off center both directions. The corners are actually pretty good, but there's this really ugly print line right there. And there's a little smudge there. So I thought they would take off. I thought they might take off more for that. That does really look a little ugly. But I thought I would send it in anyway because I'm sending in other ones. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a bonus. Roy McMillan. This one I was expecting a 6. And this one came down as a 5. That corner is dinged, bent a little bit. I mean, even these, I mean, oh, and there's a dimple on the card there too. That may affect it, dimple, and so. Johnny Sane, I was predicting a 7. Again, there was some concerns about the centering, but otherwise it looked good and still looks pretty good. So this is a nice one. This is about a $100 card as a 7. Al Smith. I was predicting 6, got a 4. It's way off center top to bottom. The corners aren't great. I mean, I bet there are a lot of worse looking 4s out there. And finally, Bert Hamrick. This one also got creamed, 4.5. I was expecting a 6, although looking, there's the corner there is a little bent. That one's a little off. That one is too. So this one I probably shouldn't have expected any more than a 5, I would guess. But still a pretty good looking card. Okay, so hopefully you're not too bored yet. We're almost done here. So let me bring in the 63 Fleers. So this set I was working on and trying to decide whether I wanted to do raw or graded. I bought a lot of nice raw cards, well, a fair number of nice raw cards like I tried to do with 55, although generally in better condition with the 63 because they're cheaper. And so I decided to go ahead and send some in. Now here my guesses are a lot more in line. So take that for whatever it's worth. So Ray Herbert, expecting an 8, and got an 8. So Jerry Kindle, again expecting, this is one I was expecting an 8, and got the 8. Now Dick Hauser, I was expecting an 8 on this one, got a 7. Centering is a little off there. The corners seem to look okay. Norm Seaburn, expecting an 8 on this one, and I did get it. 8 is what I'm shooting for in this set. It's a long-term goal, but I would like to get this set in all 8s. There's some, many hundreds of dollar cards in here, so that may take a while to get that. Bobby Richardson, I was expecting a 7, got a 7 and stain, and so you can see that pretty clearly there. Now, I don't know whether that got worse, whether I noticed that very well initially. Hard to say. Ron Santo. This one I was only expecting a 7, so it was nice to get an 8. And looking at it, it looks, that corner is a little dinged, but nice looking card. This one also I was expecting a 7, and got an 8. I was very glad to. There's a little debris on this slab. Wipe that off. Obviously happy to get another 8 on a Warren Spawn. 2 8s in the same thing, so good to get a Hall of Famer. And just for reference, I mean, this card is about a $100 card, so the 63s are obviously not nearly as valuable as some of the other years. Don Demeter, I was expecting an 8, got a 7.5, so that's not bad. Vern Law, I was expecting an 8 on this one, and did get the 8. Bill Mazeroski, this was the only one that I really screwed up my guess. I guessed 7 on this one, and I thought, well, he's a Hall of Famer, I'll send in the 7, but did not. Now this was the one of the 63 Fleers that I really needed to come through. I bought this. I paid almost $80 total for this, so at the time I really needed this to be an 8 for this to be worth it. And I thought it was an 8. It looked like an 8 in the, I think I got it from eBay, and it did get the 8. Of course, Hall of Famer, and this is now about a $200 card. So this one actually has went up quite a bit since I first sent these in. A lot of these haven't really changed a whole lot, but there's a lot of Hall of Famers that are certainly improving in value. So let me look at a couple. Let's look at a couple odds and ends here. We'll finish with the Hall of Famer. Tom Acker. This is a common from the 1957 set. This is one of these where I bought a couple of 1955s from a seller, buy it nows, and I was looking through the rest of their items, and there was this 57 Topps in there that I thought looked pretty good, and I thought it might get an 8. It's not, has not a ton of value. It's about a, maybe a $35, $40 card, but I still came out ahead on that. That's just kind of for the heck of it. Again, some of the cards I send in, some of it is just seeing how well I can predict, if I send things in the future, so I have a better idea of what things might get, although that didn't work too well with the 55s. I've got a couple, well, let's do this one first. Frank Howard, this is a 68 Topps game. I was collecting this pretty seriously for a while. This one, I just took a stab at this one. This was in an FGS 10 slab. Now I was expecting an 8 on this. It is off center, but and these are hard to judge because they don't have sharp corners. They have rounded corners, and there's not a lot of printing on them. But for whatever reason they didn't like this one as much. But it's not a big deal. And then 2 cards from my childhood that were. These are kind of just for sentimental value. Bob Uecker, 63 Topps. This is his rookie card, one of his few playing days cards. I was expecting a 5 on this, but actually got a 6. So that's fine. Again, this one wasn't really for so much for value. And then the final card, my childhood Brooks Robinson. So I've had the Euchre and the Robinson for, well, let's see, a good 35 years in my possession. 71 tops. Looks like Robinson just struck out or fouled one off or something. This one, I was originally, when I pulled out my childhood cards, a few years ago, I thought this one looked really good, and then when I started to think about grading, I thought maybe this would be a 7, but, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it see it here. There's a little divot, kind of a little indent in there, and it's certainly visible enough that looking at it closely that they would probably see it. But otherwise, these 71s are hard because of the black border, and they chip easily. So this is a really good looking 6, but 6 is what I was expecting because of the corner, because of the indent. And this one, I looked very carefully at this one to make sure I didn't think it had been recolored, because again the edges looked, the black really held up well on this card, and I wanted to make sure that it hadn't been maybe colored in because of how old it was. This is pre-grading, so third-party grading, and so I looked at it really closely with the magnifier. I also looked at it closely with a UV light to try to see if there was any recoloring on that, and there certainly wasn't. So this is the Chuck Deering that evidence of trimming. I don't think there's any way you see it on the video. But I thought maybe this left-hand side maybe could be what they were seeing something there, but it's certainly not obvious. But this was not a particularly valuable card, so I don't feel too bad about that. If you've never seen it before, this is what it looks like when they do that. It still gets a number. All the cards you send in, once they get logged into their system, they're actually assigned a cert number. But then they make a label for it, but evidence of trimming and do not holder, and N1 is the code for their code for possible trimming. So anyway, I know this was this was a really long one. Hopefully play it on one. Hopefully you played it on 1.5 speed or something. But I just thought I would show these again. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with this channel. I appreciate everybody who has subscribed. It was up to almost 500 subscribers actually. I'm still up about that high. And I got to figure out. I just have to figure out whether there's any interesting content I can put in here. I just don't think it's very interesting. Every so often say, oh, I bought another PSA 7 or 2 from the 1955 set. Bought a couple commons, and there's not as the unopened is getting harder to find in reasonable cost, and except for junk wax, and good unopened stuff is kind of out of my price range for what I want to spend. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do, but based on the cost of the cards and the grading fees and the current approximate value on these based on recent auctions, the cards came in about a value of about twice as much as what I spent on the cards and the grading. But I will sell some of these, but most of these, most of the good cards here are ones that are going to go in my collection. And so this wasn't really so much intended as a money-making thing, although I'm glad to get value out of the cards because they'll get sold at some point. I'm not going to keep these forever. So thanks for watching, and if there's a next time, I hope to see you then.